I feel like focus is not always just like, what do you do with your blocks of time? It's how are you speaking to yourself and treating yourself, and what are you really working towards? Because if you're treating yourself and speaking to yourself well, and you have that buoyant energy mentally and emotionally, spiritually that comes from honoring self, and you're doing things that you really care about, focus and discipline get way easier. As you've built all these huge things throughout your career, how did you stay focused, especially in an industry, you were in the beauty industry. I don't know if that's the proper way to describe it. But how did you stay focused? Because clearly, as you get more successful, more people want to put things on your plate, more distractions come available, then social media comes out. And it's like, I mean, what are your practices for staying focused? I think people would be really fascinated by that.
Yeah, you know, today I was thinking about this before we hopped on. Like today, I'm really having to implement tools on focus. And, you know, maybe a lot of people live with us right now can relate to this, but even though I have a lot of distractions going on, like today, my biggest distraction, honestly, has been my own head, myself, right? How many times do we like get in the way of ourself? And here's what I've been really practicing today, Brendan, already today, but then also over the years as well, is focusing on what I'm saying to myself and what I'm acknowledging. I started my morning off feeling super overwhelmed, literally almost in tears. And
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. What?
I did.
You're never overwhelmed.
I caught myself. No, it's like these things we say to ourselves, once we acknowledge them, I feel like we make them real, and we need to check ourselves. I had to check myself this morning when it comes to focus, because for a while I was focusing on like, I'm so overwhelmed and I'm so tired, right? Those are the things I was saying to myself. I'm like, oh, and all that did was perpetuate those feelings. And, you know, and I was like, yeah, but, you know, and I told myself, oh, but I'm so grateful. And this is a once in a lifetime week and all those things. I said that to myself, but I realized my focus, my real focus, and what I even was saying to Sarah this morning, my focus was, I'm tired. I'm so overwhelmed. We have 12 shows today. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was deliberately perpetuating not bringing the joy.
Right.
And I had to check myself.
Good distinction. That's a huge distinction.
Yeah. Well, and I realized my focus is just it's the things I don't want, the things I'm not even wanting to happen are getting bigger today. All because of my own head, not because of all the distractions around me, not because of any of that, right? And so it's all what I was choosing to focus on and actually say out loud in the case of today.
Your self-talk becomes your self-concept, and your self-talk becomes your situation.
Yes.
And so if it's like, that's why I'm always telling people, the thing to listen for in your voice and in your tone is always listen to, what are you bemoaning?
Yeah.
Right? What are you bemoaning? Oh, I got to do this commute. Oh, I got to do this email. Oh, I got to do this legal thing. And the more of those, I have to do this, I don't want to do that. That focus, that self-talk makes you in ways build a mental prison of in some ways victimhood, that, I am, these things, I have to do these things. When, as you mentioned earlier, like, and I just know Jamie's like on purpose right now. Like she's on, for those who saw her last Monday or who read the book, Believe It, she's in a flow. She's in a flow of service right now. And in that flow, one easy way we can all poison our flow, our focus, is when we start going, oh, and I have to do all these things. It's like, no, these things are all part of it. Those things all add to the whole. And so listen to your own tonality with yourself. Is like, when you bemoan it, beware. That's what I always say to myself. Oh, I'm bemoaning. Oh, beware, Brendan. You're gonna close off the flow. You're gonna close off your heart. You're gonna close off your ability to serve at higher levels of energy and frequency that people need. The more that you hate the process, the more the process goes, well, then I ain't gonna even know more progress.
Yeah. And even just focusing on the tough parts of the process, right? Like, or like this morning, really, it was, I'm so tired. Like I started focusing on that and I feel like it literally magnified and took over my emotions, took over everything. And I had to check myself. Like I had to, like I really did in terms of even just what I focus on. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it might be true that I'm tired, but there's so many other things too. And I don't want to become more tired. And I think like when I caught myself focusing on that and feeling like, oh, and so, I decided I had to be super intentional this morning about, oh, no, I'm going to focus on I'm going to catch myself and say, um, if I do share those, if I do think those things, they're just going to perpetuate. You know what I mean? And I had to intentionally shift my focus. And I also was honestly, so sometimes so I'm in a hotel room, right? And I learned this lesson the hard way in life, that life's not meant to do alone. And so I intentionally hopped online this morning and started connecting and reading messages, crying my eyes out. Brendan, there is a single mom who started a book club with Believe It, and she did a whole post about it. And then she said, and if you're a single mom and want to join my book club and you can't afford to get your copy, I bought 2 extras and I'll send them to you. And I'm just sitting there sobbing, right? Like, so then I took all my author copies from the room next door. I had 10 author copies here that the publisher sent me, and I signed them all and like DM'd her. I'm like, where can I send these to you at? Give these.
That's awesome.
They can't afford to get a book. And it's like, I just shifted my focus this morning away from myself and, yes, oh, I'm tired, because I don't want to magnify that. But we have to be intentional about this, right? Because it would have been way easier to just sit there and be like, oh, I'm tired. But it's like, oh, okay, I acknowledge that's what I'm focused on. I'm watching myself grow in my woe, like all the negative stuff I don't want to feel, because that's what I'm focused on. Let me shift my focus. Let me connect. Let me give. And let me do something bigger than myself, right? And listen, sometimes that can be, let me walk down the street and wave hi to somebody and tell them I see them. It can be that simple, right? Let me text someone who maybe feels alone. It could be that simple. Today for me, it came in the form of, oh wow, this person's story is so amazing what she's doing. How can I serve her? And I had 10 author copies here from the publisher. So I literally signed them and literally am mailing them to her saying, can you give these to any single mom who can't afford to grab the book? And it snapped me out of the crap I was focused on for a hot minute. And like,
I love it.
Right? Refocus on the things I want to magnify, which is the feeling of goodness, of service, of aliveness, of feeling the day, right? Those kind of things. So
yeah. I love that. She used connection. Right. So she started with connection, like, oh, let me look outside myself. Let me see who I can serve here. Let me see, even if she went to DMing friends, or she went to, sending audios or videos to people. Many of you guys know we always teach that in growth days, like, hey, send 5 encouraging voice texts or videos every day to friends or family or your customers, your teams every day. It just gets you out of your head and into that. And then the second thing is generosity. Like, oh, I'm going to send these people a free book. I'm going to sign this thing. I'm going to help these people in this way. It's like it shifts you. Like the higher levels of frequency in your life are always going to come from service. They're always going to come from that. That's so true. Generosity. Yeah. It's like you want to turn on. Like we do this. Hey, I can promise you guys. Sometimes we do this morning show, and we're like setting everything up, and we're talking through things as we're setting things up, and we're getting ready, and it's like we're not like enthusiastic or turned on yet, if you will. And then we hit go, and now we go, oh, we can add some value here. Oh, this is gonna be fun. And I feel like when you put yourself in play where you can be generous or add value, it turns on your spirit. We hear it all the time from you guys in Growth Day. Our Growth Day members, like, wow, I finished that live session. I'm fired up. I finished that thing. I did my goals. I finished this. And it's just beautiful to see. And I just feel like we all have to remind ourselves that. Don't get stuck in your own thing. However, I will have to say responsibly, or people are going to give me a hard time. And that is this. Also listen to that truth. Yeah. When your body is saying, I am overwhelmed. I am tired.
Yeah.
Don't just run it over with positive thinking. Also go, I need to make an action plan to stop taking on so much that I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And to stop taking on so much that's compromising my sleep. Or I need to get support. Or I need to it's like, hear it, acknowledge it, adjust an action plan for it, and then shift into the service. But I think it's important. Don't run over that, because that is a signal from your body going, oh my God. Our theme this week is becoming more focused and disciplined. But how do you do that and actually have fun? How do you do that and do the things that are meaningful to you? And our joy here at the Growth Day Morning Show is just bringing some joy to you, bringing some encouragement, bringing a little bit of reminders that you got this. I know it's hard out there. I know you're bored with quarantine. I know you're just like frustrated with a lot of that's going on in the world. And yet every day you still get to choose your attitude. Yeah. What a blessing. What a blessing. Jamie, you got a big 2 weeks coming up for your book launch. You're focused, you're disciplined. How are you not stressing yourself out crazy as you're working on a new project? Because I know a lot of people, I did a meditation last night on Clubhouse, and people are like, thank you. I needed that. I'm so stressed. I'm working so hard. I'm just, the anxiety and everything's getting to them. And so how are you dealing with an intense time and staying focused and disciplined when it's so easy to watch Netflix instead?
Yeah, and it's tempting. Last night, I'm not going to lie, I was tempted to watch The Bachelor, pour some wine in a coffee mug, and have some popcorn, but I didn't.
Be honest. Have you had wine in the Growth Day mug yet?
I have not, but it's on my goal to-do list. Is to pour some wine in my Growth Day mug. And and because the book launched, because we're 12 days away, I now have 2 coffees for Growth Day. Because the book, coffee, and growth, because it's, early morning. So how I'm staying, one of the things I'm doing, today was another 4 a.m. morning walk just to stay on, because it's a wild day. I have 6.
Anyone else can't do 4 a.m.s? I can't do it.
No. But you're a night owl, right? You're more like, you create at night.
Right.
I create in the morning. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Everyone's a little different. You guys type below. Are you more, a morning, like, do you create in the morning, or do you get your best ideas? Yeah. Like
early bird or night owl? Everyone type
early bird or night owl.
So back to Jamie. Focus, discipline. Brendan, be focused, dude.
This is a funny story. So right before Brendan and I go live, we're both laughing about all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And then I'm like, wait. And then you're like, wait, what's the theme this week? And then we're like, oh yeah, focus.
We are totally not focused this morning.
And I almost spit my coffee out, because I'm like, yeah, that's the theme. That's definitely the theme. But listen, all week we're going to be talking about frameworks and actionable items and things you can apply to your real life, but we're also going to be having a lot of fun. And so my husband, Paulo, just got his first haircut in the entire past year during quarantine, right? So he's been trying to shave himself. If I do it, and I would do it, but there'll be big holes. And so he's been doing it. And he did it outside. So we had a friend over that did it outside in the driveway. And now it's great. And so when I saw Brendan this morning, I was looking at his hair. I'm like, did you just get a haircut too? Did you just get a haircut? And you told me, I had no idea. You do your own, because you have complicated. You have the fade, you have the thing on a little bit of height on top. And
it's so bad, guys.
I
did it. I do it myself. So I have just the thing with a guard on it that I got on Amazon for literally $18. And I just go all around. I don't even use a mirror. I just go all the way around. And then I just grab a finger's worth of hair and scissors on the top. That's it. It definitely looks better on Instagram than in real life. It's pretty uneven. There it is. It's pretty uneven up there. But for straight on shots, just fine.
It looks good. There's no holes anywhere that I've seen. There's no, when you shave accidentally too close on the side, see, people are laughing, right? They're saying, OMG, oh, exactly.
I'm surprised more people don't cut their own hair. You can literally watch a YouTube tutorial And I mean, here's my thing. Every answer you need is on Google and YouTube. You just have to take the time to look it up and watch. So that's what I do. And so I learned how to do it on YouTube.
How to
And
cut your own hair on YouTube
yes,
too?
and it was so complicated. I was like, that's so dumb. And so then I saw, this thing advertised. Like, I think I figured it out. And the first time I did it, it was a little too tight, but it's super simple. And I just feel like it's one of those other little things of self-reliance in life. I just feel like you can teach yourself to do so many things. You can teach yourself to work out. You can teach yourself to get healthy. You can teach yourself to be on the internet. You can teach yourself to do video. You can teach yourself to be a better team leader, parent, mom, caregiver. That's the intention of growth is, can you learn? Can you teach yourself? Can you take the reins? Because I'm just, for me, where I'm at, I'm just not going to go into a barbershop. I'm just not going to do it. I'm too COVID squeamish personally. I just don't want to do it. And I know that not everyone agrees with that, and they think I'm silly, and they're like, just double mask with your haircut, kid. But I said, I'm not going to do it because I want to go see my mom. Our parents are in their 70s, and I do everything I can possibly do to protect myself because I want to see mom. And so if that means I have to cut my own hair, that seems like a pretty simple sacrifice. I don't know.
And it goes back to an example of what you always talk about with confidence, which is just you have this confidence in your ability to figure things out, right? So in the case of, let me figure out how to do my own haircut, you just figure it out. And, it's interesting, pre-YouTube, pre the internet, like I grew up where the way you figure it out is, either your mom or someone teaches you. And I grew up with my mom, literally, no joke, putting a bowl on my head and cutting the bangs around the bowl. And so when you see some of my photos from like 3rd grade, I was like 8 years old, and it's like a perfect bowl in the school pictures. And then, do you guys remember this? Anyone else, by the way, ever use a bowl or have someone in their family use a bowl? Type in the comments if you've done this. Or Brendan, you just reminded me of something so funny. I don't know why I find this so funny, but did you ever see that infomercial with the Flowbee? That thing that looks like a vacuum, and you put it on the hair, and then it.
George Clooney just sold it out by announcing he's been using it his whole career. He uses a Flowbee his entire career. He's cut his own hair his entire career. He's been using the
Flowbee
for 20 years. George Clooney announced it like last month, and it sold out everywhere overnight. Not kidding you. Wow. It was a huge, crazy thing because he was like, "Yeah, I just use the Flowbee." And she's like, "No, you don't." He goes, "Yeah, I've always used it." It's not that. Here's the other thing. Here's one thing for those who aren't into trial and error. One reason I'm so good at trial and error in marketing, and one reason I'm so good at trial and error. The reason
all these people are typing that they have the Flowbee and they use it. Okay,
it's great.
Trial and error. This week is focused. How am I not focused today?
You're the worst today. I don't know what's going on.
I am. Is it so much? Is it the book launch? I'm just really hyper, and I'm not okay. I'm gonna focus. But I am disciplined. I did my morning walk. I've been laughing ever since like your haircut before we started because it looks so good. I'm like, you did it? Okay, focus and discipline.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so my question was, how do you stay focused and disciplined in intense times like this? I think part of the answer is you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm teasing a little bit, but it really is super hard right now to be focused. This was as a topic. So we've been doing this Growth Day morning show, Jamie and I, for 5 weeks, every weekday, right? And we've had a lot of like week 1 was like vision week. And then we had like some other thing. And then we were figuring it out. And then it was confidence week. This week is focus and discipline more than any other topic title. This one has gotten higher engagement because people know that in general, they suck at this. And they don't realize that the challenge with focus and discipline is always an emotional regulation challenge. It's never what you do for a living. It's not your bank account. It's not how many kids you have. It's not all the stories we will tell ourselves because we know people who have that big of a team or have that big of a family or have that many responsibilities and they're able to do it. And it comes back to in the science. I'm not making an argument here against people. I'm saying in the science, that it comes back to an emotional regulation, the ability to have self-control in the midst of distractions and competing interests because you know what you want. You're clear. Like when clarity is down, discipline goes out the door.
Mm.
When clarity is down, of course you're not focused because your mind is trying to absorb and take in everything so you can find the thing. And so it's actually okay if you're unfocused on discipline, but just know the first step is going to be seeking clarity and reminding yourself with visuals and notes and cue cards and pop-ups on your phone what is important. I have to, you guys, everyone teases me about this now, David, because I say it all the time. I have to stand in front of that board over there every day for 5 minutes to remind me of what's important. Otherwise, I will absolutely run outside and chase cars. I mean, I would like, I would be the dumbest, happiest dog running all over the place. I am just not built. I'm not. Everyone thinks, Brendan, you're so focused. I'm like, I'm not built that way. I've had to train myself that way.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the things I talked about yesterday was just when we think about the one big thing, right, that moves the needle, and then the things that are distractions, right? And I talked about, for me, the importance of just walking in the morning. And so many people inside the live community talked about how when they do their morning workout, or they go for a walk, or maybe it's a meditation, that it literally impacts everything else. That it's not even about, you know, how they feel in the moment of working out, or how it, you know, the immediate, it's about that it literally sets up everything else for that. And I think, to your point about being, you know, having clarity, when you talk about clarity, you know, I think that for me, as an example, just to be super real, before this call and before I was laughing about haircuts with Brendan and about focus, I literally, one of the first things I said to him is, I just missed a huge deadline, and I don't miss deadlines. I was like, I can't believe I go, Brendan, I literally am about to cry this morning. Like, I missed one of the biggest deadlines for a big company that's going to support my book launch. They needed an email, and it's a whole thing. And I was like, I can't believe I did that. And normally I'm so organized, right? And I made the decision in that moment, I'm going to just enjoy and be present with Brendan, talk about his haircut. And I'm going to, when I, hopefully this makes sense. When we talk about clarity, I'm crystal clear, because I've spent 10 years working 100-hour weeks, building this huge company with thousands of, like, all the things. And I didn't enjoy it a lot of the times. Like, I was so, right? And so for this book launch, I'm also working 100-hour weeks, but I'm so clear that I want to enjoy it this time, right? So it's interesting that in this moment where the pre-show to the Growth Day morning show, when I'm like, Brendan, literally, I'm about to cry. I literally can't believe I dropped this ball. It's so unlike me, all these things. But I'm like, you know what? I have clarity that this time around, I'm going to enjoy this. For me, that's the big thing, right?
Yes.
And so I'm like, oh, the flow bee. And then, like, because there's
just enjoy it. Yes, just enjoy it. And you know what? Also, I gave her a little coaching this morning. I said, it's okay. You missed a deadline. Most deadlines are arbitrary. And I'll just say that for the track record, people need to understand that. But also the mentality here, this will help, because it's probably the shift of her being able to enjoy things in her life versus where she couldn't before, comes back to an unconscious catastrophic thinking. Right? Missing a deadline, it's not catastrophic. You'll fix it. You'll get it done. But if it's, oh, the world's falling apart. Oh, I hate myself. Well, that's why people often don't enjoy the life. They're just like, everything is catastrophic. Everything's a big deal and a drama. I'm not saying this about you. I'm saying this about people in general who they make these little things that aren't even huge things without realizing, oh, you can improve. You can change it. Get it. You can still, okay. So you missed it by a day. Get it done. You like, there's so many, if I cried on every deadline I missed, I would cry on the hour every day of my life. The number of deadlines that I have built into my life, I would just be like, ah, but I miss a ton of them, a ton of deadlines. And people are like, you're the disciplined guy. I'm like, yes, but I also run all these different companies, do all these different things. Inevitably, somebody put an arbitrary deadline on me, and they'd prefer it then, but it's not real. Mm-hmm. If I miss it, I'll catch back up. I'll get back in it. I'm not flippant about other people's times and schedules. I just know I'll get there. It's cool. I don't flip out.
Yeah, and something you just said that I think is huge, 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 huge in distinguishing discipline is you're not saying the big thing is through discipline I will hit every deadline. I feel like what you just said is transcends that. And I think this is huge for everyone, especially people out there who are perfectionists or people out there who are dealing with stuff not going their way. And sometimes it's small things that we miss or mess up. And sometimes it's big things. But what you just said, what I heard is not, oh, because I'm mastering discipline, I'm going to hit every deadline. It's, oh, because I'm mastering discipline, I'm going to know how to keep focus with clarity and handle everything and be resilient when I don't hit deadlines, right?
Yes.
It's the discipline and the clarity that transcends all that. When that's huge, because then we're not at the mercy of all these things that we're not doing perfectly, or balls we're dropping, or mistakes that happen, or things that aren't going well in our life. And sometimes they're out of our control, right? With setbacks so it's like the discipline isn't in just that. The discipline is how do we handle it all with clarity. That's huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, think of this. When I think about like focus and discipline and that part of how much those two things hang on resilience, because you're going to focus, you're going to break discipline. And if you pretend that's not going to happen, and every time you break focus or you break discipline, you hate yourself because you missed your morning routine, or you hate yourself because you missed this deadline, that self-hate gathers. And the more that guilt or that self-dislike for missing things, the more that gathers and you allow it to, the less resilience you're going to have over a period of time, because you're chipping away at your own confidence because you're so hard on yourself. And the more you're hard on yourself, the more you chip away the confidence. So the only two things that you can do going in is, one, just make sure you have clear priorities and perspective.
Yeah.
I love those two words together, priorities and perspective, because you need perspective to have priorities. And when you have priorities, you need perspective when you miss them or have to reshuffle them. Like most of my week, I would say 20% of my week is reshuffling things. People are like, what? I'm like, oh yeah. 20% of my week is reshuffling things. Yeah. The good news is, we learned in High Performance Habits, the research, 60% of my week is on the needle moving things, like the things that move the business forward, build reach and build revenue. Like these are like the things. Everything else is secondary for me as a CEO, because that's my job for the team, the company, you guys as an audience, for me to focus on these few specific needle movers. And that's what my encouragement would be today, is for everybody to write down what are the real needle movers that make you happy or give you progress, that you feel like, oh, by doing these things, I move forward the most. And if you can just give 60% of your time to those each week, we know, at least from the research, that that's your odds of reaching long-term success and being happy about it. That's right there. And then it's just about, I love what Jamie said, she's being present when she's in here, having the perspective to know, okay, I'm here now. I can't deal with those other things right now. The perspective is, I'm going to be present with this. There's big things. There's this thing, and just not blowing things out of proportion. I think that's one reason people lack focus and discipline. They beat themselves up so many times. They actually hurt their confidence, which hurts their discipline. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is so good. I think, right now we are we're approaching the middle of February, which is wild, right? Crazy. There are so many people that are part of the Growth Day community and that are just hopping into this Growth Day morning show going, who are these two people? What's going on? And
hi, guys.
It's Brendan and Jamie. We're live Monday through Friday, 7:30 Pacific, every single weekday. Where we all come together to boost joy and inspiration and share and community. And, but, I think, Brendan, that, a lot of people, I think this is really big, what we're talking about, in the sense of a lot of people have gotten to mid-February and they started the year off strong, right? Thinking, okay, a lot of people or maybe they started the month off strong, right? And they think, here's my big goals, all the things. And then when they start missing them, they don't give themselves grace, exactly what you're talking about. And then they think, oh, okay, I'm starting over next month, or I'm starting over next week, or I'm starting the diet next Monday, or all the things. But when we start focusing on the thing we missed, the thing that we didn't have our focus on, the thing that the ball we draw, all those things. And it may even be New Year's goals and New Year's resolutions and all of those things. I feel like we're letting the circumstances of those determine like a way bigger space in our daily life and in our own mindset than it needs to be if we're able to then transcend them. And I just want to go back to it one more time, because I even think for people new to your community, they might see you as someone with a high performance planner, and every little thing is, you talk about schedule and timing and laying it all out and having it planned, right? So I think it might be easy for somebody to think, oh, that's the key to success. And I think this is huge, because I think a lot of people probably share this in the comments and share this with me, this idea that, oh, I've let missing those things or dropping the balls of my New Year's resolution or falling off the wagon in something or this or that kind of take over or take a bigger space in my own mindset of I've failed, or yes, I, am not doing this enough or well enough or that enough, or, oh, I've lost focus, so screw it, and I'll figure that goal out later. But no, it's how do you handle it when that happens is the discipline. Just to go back to that one more time, and you sharing this is huge, because I know you as a friend in real life. So I know all these things, and I think they're so funny when you might miss a deadline or something, like, because I think, oh, good, he's human, all those things. I think it's funny because I know you as a friend, but I just want to make sure everyone makes this connection, because I think it's our humanness inside all of us where we beat ourselves up a little bit if we miss a deadline or drop a ball or make a mistake, or if someone else does something to us that just sucks, right? And it's not even in our control, or we haven't kept the promise to ourselves that for this year, we're going to do this for our New Year's resolution or X, Y, or Z. You're not saying that day to day, as the inventor of the most genius, million sold high performance planner, you're not saying that day to day, it all is perfect and that's success. You're saying how you handle it when you miss all the deadlines, how you handle it is everything. Can you just share that one more time? Because this is huge for a lot of people who are starting to just doubt themselves or feel bad that they, you know what I mean? That we're in the middle of Feb and things aren't going as they planned.
Yeah, let's work backwards through this conversation. So if you are lacking focus and discipline, we can work backwards from that and go, oh, there's some emotional regulation issues here that are preventing me from being more focused or disciplined. Working backwards from that, it usually comes down to clarity and confidence. Clarity is, oh, I know what I want. I have my priorities. I get what that is. And confidence is, oh, when I mess up, I can keep perspective and still stay present and keep working forward versus stopping. It's when you recognize, oh my gosh, I wasn't focused this morning, so F the whole day. I'm gonna go sit down with 7 buckets of ice cream and 7 seasons of Netflix. Like that's not going to make you feel better about yourself. It's going to give you short-term comfort, but then the next day you don't trust yourself to show up when you mess up. You don't trust yourself to show up when you get unfocused or you didn't fulfill the thing or meet the deadline. And so I think it's really important to go, oh, okay, focus and discipline then ultimately comes from clarity and confidence. Am I clear about what I want and why it matters? Do I remind myself of that? Do I have the confidence to step forward each day and doing it, and then have the confidence to be resilient when I don't get it right, and keep it all in perspective? Clarity and confidence come together in perspective to go, oh, I missed this thing. Okay, guess what? There's wars happening in other countries. Our topic is on focus and discipline. Yesterday, I talked about how, we have to realign our weeks sometimes. Actually, I was on the Growth Day members only area yesterday talking about how aliveness and connection and meaning are what we're after.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're lacking focus sometimes, maybe it's because what you're doing isn't the things that brings you enthusiasm, joy, purpose, mission, meaning. Maybe it's sometimes you're just tired. You're wiped out. So your focus isn't there because your physical well-being, you're just tired and exhausted. And so it's hard to stay focused and disciplined. And also I shared yesterday, Jamie, on Instagram about how, sometimes the reason we're not focused and disciplined is because every time we try to do something, we speak so negatively of ourselves that of course the brain doesn't look forward to trying again, because every time we try again, we apply self-hate and negative speaking to ourselves. And our brain just goes, I don't want to do that, because you're just going to feel discouraged and you're going to hate on yourself. And so learning to focus and move forward with like positive affirmation for self, which you teach me a lot about, honestly, is helping people realize, oh, when I do that, I feel good when I get momentum. Of course I want to get momentum today. Of course I want to take action today, because when I do that, I honor and I respect myself. I get momentum. That feels good. It gives me more competency and capabilities. Okay, that feels good. So I feel like focus is not always just like, what do you do with your blocks of time? It's how are you speaking to yourself and treating yourself, and what are you really working towards? Because if you're treating yourself and speaking to yourself well, and you have that buoyant energy mentally and emotionally, spiritually, that comes from honoring self, and you're doing things that you really care about, focus and discipline get way easier.
Yeah, that's so good. The words we say to ourselves about ourselves are like the most powerful words, right? And yeah, and I think that's really big. And I think, you know, this is a really important topic for everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur or someone starting a dream or someone just looking to grow or have a better relationship or a better family, that a lot of times, like, and you know, when people do the self-analysis, Brendan, I think this is really powerful, because I think we all realize, oh, sometimes we're guilty of this, like that we say things to ourselves about us that we would never, ever even think about saying to another person. You know what I mean? Like, for some of us, it's easy to see our friend and go, wow, they're an amazing parent. But then to ourselves, we're like, oh, I can't, like, I made the frozen microwave dinner for the third day in a row. I'm like the things we say to ourselves, right? That we would never. And also when it comes to focus, I feel like it's easier for us to focus on celebrating other people and celebrating all the things they're doing right. And then when we focus on ourselves, it's the opposite. And then we start telling ourselves in our own head, we focus and hone in on the things we're not doing enough of, or the things we're not doing right. And then those get bigger. And I think it's a really powerful thing. And even an exercise to do this week, by the way, to really just take note of and be aware of the things that you're saying to other people who you love and care about and or work with or just met in the coffee shop, the things you say to other people, and then even write down 5 or the 10 of the things you actually say to yourself in your own head. And even just doing that simple exercise, it's eye-opening. It's eye-opening.
Yeah, if most people heard their internal chatter, they would have so much sympathy for themselves. They'd say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I speak to myself that way. No wonder I'm not focused. I feel terrible. What's so important, I think, in this new world where everyone's so busy and distracted, we're all doing these things, is to really elevate the conversation about wellness, well-being. We learned that in the high performance research, right? It's like the highest performers, the longest term successful people across the world, in 190 countries, the top 10 to 15% of most successful people in both well-being and happiness, positive relationships, and external success, like wealth or perceived goal attainment. That well-being piece, the sense that they have positive health, mental, emotional, physical, was critical to their long-term drive and success. And so some of you've been so, like, Jamie and I keep reminding people, like, there's times in your life when you're in a launch window, when you are so focused and you are so disciplined that some things get compromised. Like, I'm sure Jamie would love more sleep and more time with her family, hands down, right? And friends and people, right? We all have these launch windows. But in general, we have to make sure we are always training our mind and our body to be at ease, to be at peace, to be in a wellspring of health, because then it's so much easier to be focused and disciplined. People ask me all the time, like, how do you create this much content for this many years? I'm like, because I feel good. You know, I had a brain injury in 2011, and I had a huge book deadline. We had passed like 4 million people on Facebook following us. We had, you know, that was I think one of my first years earning like tens of millions of dollars. I had no idea what the hell was going on. Life was just going so fast. I felt like I was in launch windows all the time. And then I got in an accident and got post-concussive syndrome. And I felt terrible. And I snapped my wrist off. So if you ever see my wrist, I got this big piece of metal in here. I threw out my hip, dislocated shoulder, broke a bunch of ribs. And most importantly, I scrambled my eggs. I got my brain rattled pretty hard. And I had 6 months after that where I struggled so much with not just focus, not just discipline, just feeling like even showing up. Just feeling like even showing up, let alone focus for an hour, let alone be disciplined, to say no to the bad things and yes to the right things. I just feeling like showing up was so friggin' hard. And it was so awful of an experience. I said, I am going to learn to completely optimize my brain health. I'm going to learn to repair my body. That's when I got into like a ton of mobility work, a ton of flexibility work, started like training differently so that I had greater range of motion. It's when I said, you know what, I'm going to do all the things in the morning to set my brain up for success throughout the day. That's what the original version of the high performance planner was born. I did that for myself so I could organize myself and just set yourself up for success. Because I feel like the good news is if you suffered or you felt bad, you don't want that anymore. So how are you training yourself to be better? That's what high performance is all about. How are you training ourselves to be better so that it's actually easier to perform than have to like grit and bear it and like, I don't have to like fight to create joy and content in my life because I take so good care of myself that it flows, right? That I'm not blocking source. I'm not blocking my heart. I'm not blocking those things. And I think that's been a big secret to my success.
That's huge. I didn't know that's where the high performance planner originated, actually.
Because I was a hot mess. Look, it's right here today. Look, this is the high performance planner. I write my daily version on it because I have my journal version too. So I feel it's like even this morning, I'm lost without that piece. But I also just want to encourage everybody, if you've never had, I say this to high performance people all the time, if you've never had that 1 year of your life where you absolutely went for it to take care of your brain health and your physical health, if you've never had that year, give yourself the gift of that this year. You'll be so, most people have no idea how terrible they feel until they feel great. And then they're like, oh, I want to live here. I want to feel great. So train yourself for that. Train yourself. I think you'll all be surprised. You don't have to run marathons or do crazy superhuman biohacking ninjutsu on your, you don't have to take 1 million supplements. What we need you to do is ask, how can you take care of yourself better? Because I promise the focus and discipline gets easier.
That's so good. I see a lot of people in the comments too, talking about like one small step at a time, taking that step. And I think something you just said is huge because we're always typically so focused on goals with our career or our families or this or that. And you're kind of just saying like when you feel so good, when you feel good and you feel the day, everything else is at a whole other level too, right? So it's like that foundational piece. And, for me, that's a big thing coming up this year is focusing on health for a decade, building at cosmetics, building this company. But Brendan, for the first 3 years of the business, I could never, I was in the season of rejection and setback where it was like 3 years of everyone saying no. And then by the time we started getting momentum and by the time we started growing, I almost couldn't believe the success was happening for a while, or that I was worthy of it, or that I deserved it, or that all of that imposter syndrome kicked over. And I was just driving myself so hard to the point of burnout for a number of years. And I always felt like I had to strike while the iron's hot. And the one thing that I look back on and wish I had done differently was I don't think you have to live in burnout or in that grind to actually have the kind of outcome that you want, right?
Our week's theme this week, Jamie, has been how to increase focus and discipline and drive, especially when it's hard. What's something that you have found as you've been launching Believe It that helped you with the focus, because it's so much work?
It's so much work. I mean, for me, I always try to bring it back to why am I doing what I'm doing, right? Like the bigger thing that's not about me. Also, you know, you and I are both, and by the way, most everyone on this morning show with us live, I think you coined this phrase. What did you say? Personal growth, personal development, personal growth, dorks, or personal, like geeking out on personal development. I've gotten so many messages about that. People are like, I'm a personal personal growth. I love to geek out on that stuff too. And I, you know, have loved this stuff my whole life. So I do it for myself and my downtime. I love it. And on the topic of focus, this morning, all alone in my hotel room, it's day 17. I've been in this hotel room doing the event, because I came out a week early to prep for the event, and then the book launch stuff. And so I was in here reading actually quotes this morning about focus. And one of them that I read, just going to share with everybody. I just thought it was so powerful, right? Because I just had this big thing happen. Getting the New York Times bestseller list. So just to give I guess, Brendan, let me just go there, because you and I just kind of peel back the curtain and let everyone in on this Growth Day morning show. And so what happened last night was I got this big phone call, and then it turned into a Zoom, and all of the people from the publisher and Simon & Schuster and everyone was on this big Zoom cheersing. Everyone's excited. And then right away comes up talk about book number 2. And right, I know. And then I won't even say who called me. Okay, how do I not get in trouble? Okay, a couple people then called me after, and they're like, and then the next book, and I'm just like, whoa. And I just want to bring this up for a reason, because I always talk about our own growth and our own growth journey. I am making the decision right now to focus on not doing this to myself again, meaning, so many times, right? So many times we have a win in the day, and maybe that win is that we went on our morning walk. Maybe that win is that, but then it's so easy for our own selves or other people to be like, well, what about this, or what's next, or what, right? And I did that to myself for a decade. Like in the decade of building my company, you know, for so many years we had no success and no money and no traction. But when we finally started getting it, and we finally started getting big wins and all these things, and, you know, the beauty industry that always discounted me all of a sudden was giving me all these awards, and all this stuff was happening. And I never stopped to appreciate it and feel it and celebrate it. It was always like, oh, but what about this? And what about that? And I just think that it applies to our lives every single day when it comes to focus, is that it's so easy and other people will do this to us, right? They'll say, oh, but you know, what's next? And, oh, you got that? Well, what about that? Right? And then all of a sudden, before we know it, we're not even able to feel the day. We're just thinking about the things that, you know, we can still keep going for, or that help other people more, whatever it is. And we end up feeling not enough where we're at with what we have. And I just think that focusing on the victories too is really important, you know? And sometimes the victory is just not eating the Oreos. You know what I mean? Like, that's a victory. Like picking up the berries when you don't want them. Like if you're blessed enough to have berries, and then being like, wow, I'm blessed to have berries, right? Like that's a victory. But how many times are we just like, we're there's so much going on that we end up focusing on what we don't have. And I just had this, you know, you and I both, I think, are really sharing with everyone in connection and community on this show, not just the things we've learned and the things we teach and the things we coach others on. Like I've had the blessing of mentoring now so many entrepreneurs and so many women. And yeah, we teach all those things too. But also what I love is we really go there and in addition to teaching stuff, we really go there and share what's actually going on in our own lives. And I just want to share that with everyone in the community today, because maybe somebody needs to hear this too. Is last night I had a moment of, oh, wait, everyone else has already moved on. And like, they're like, okay, what's next? Book number 2. I'm like, whoa, like I'm intentionally deciding right now, I'm not doing a book number 2 at this moment. I'm intentionally deciding, how can I inspire and impact and be in this moment and connect with real human beings who need the stories in this book, who need hope and inspiration? How can I show up and serve right now and be grateful where I'm at and feel the moment? And so it was a big moment of realization about focus last night. And I just want to share that because I think I've failed to do that for a number of years. And
always that next thing, chasing that next thing is so exhausting. And it also, I'll share with this because I know those calls. I've been blessed to have 6 of them in my career now. And let me share the biggest mistake of all of it is that what happens is people focus on the blips. They're like, oh, I got this thing. I mentored one woman one time who she got on the Today Show, and everyone in her life was like, oh my God, you got on Today Show. You did it. Yes, celebrate victory today. And she's like, that's an appearance. That's a start. She was focused on the mission. So the show was the blip, right? Everyone sees the blip, celebrates the victory, celebrates the blip. But to make something real, you have to choose in your life, okay, am I going to focus on those little blips and that's done, that's completion, next thing, next product, next thing, or am I going to make a blockbuster? That's the thing. The thing about focus too is it's not just about not going on the next thing because it feels terrible, which it does, and going on the next thing too fast because you don't get to celebrate it. It's also, if you just bounce from project to project to project, you never take anything deep. It doesn't form roots. It doesn't become a thing ingrained in people's lives. It's like Apple didn't need to make 4,000 products. It was like, we're gonna make 5 and we're gonna dominate with these 5. It's like, we're gonna stick to the things and spend time on them to cultivate them, to grow them. Books are like that. Yeah, I'm still promoting High Performance Habits. It came out 3.5 years ago. And it's still selling equally as good because I still perpetuate the book and I tell the story in the emails and our Facebook groups and everything. I think it's, if you've got something and it's working, sometimes it's like, let's double down on that. Let's grow that. Let's make that the thing instead of, oh, let's go plant 7 more fields right now. It's like, let's cultivate this field and let's heal this field. Let's be part of it. Let's grow something we're proud of and set roots on something. I feel like we live in a very distracted next society and no one's building roots. So that's why we lack a society that has any significant missions, any significant movements, because no one sits with it and cultivates it. And I think that's important for branding. I think it's important for books. I think it's important for all of you who are trying to do something, get your health right. You don't get to go to the gym one time and be like, oh, I guess I'll try the next thing. It's like, you got to stay on the thing. You got to cultivate the thing.
Yeah. You know, so one of the quotes I was reading this morning, just because I'm sort of a dork like that, this is what I do. Every day, forever, right? Poetry, read quotes, all that stuff. I just love it so much. And anyways, I came across this quote this morning from Oprah who said, when we focus on what we have, we get more. And when we focus on what we don't have, we never have enough. And I just thought it was so powerful too around this idea of focus. You know what I mean? For this week when I read it this morning, because it is so easy. It is so easy to focus on what we don't have yet or what isn't, you know, all those things.
What we haven't done yet or achieved yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you never achieve enough. You never have enough. You never, right? And someone like her, who from the outside seems to have everything, her whole thing is when you focus on what you have more. And I think that is just such a powerful thing.
She's
because
a great example for that. Yeah. She did a show for 20 years. She didn't do a million things. She did a show for 20 years. Like that's unbelievable discipline and dedication.
Yeah.
I also think, you know, on topic of focus, I wanted to jump in something today that I think people will resonate with, which was for this idea of focusing on what you have and focusing on what you have achieved. I think one great way to look at it too is sometimes when you're just going really strong and you don't feel the day, you don't feel victory, you don't feel, you know, in alignment or the things are going, you know, perfectly. I just remind you one great thing. Everyone goes, yeah, I need more focus. And I say, well, what are you focusing on? What is the discipline you are building?
Mm.
And one thing I think that most people don't focus on enough is their enjoyment of life. Like, you have to build in moments throughout the day to feel the day. You have to build in moments throughout the day, even when everything else is in chaos or not perfect, to still experience life and feel the day. You know, so it's like your morning walk, or, you know, Denise and I, we just took our morning walk, and then afterwards I jumped in the ocean and just spent 5 minutes floating like a dumb turtle there, just like, oh, this is great. And just
today?
Yeah. Even though I have, 400 emails I get personally today that none of my 200 plus team members can answer. So the 400 that come to me every day, and the 78 SMS texts I get every day. So 80 texts a day, 400 emails a day for a decade. I don't wake up in the morning like, oh my God, I got to get to those. I don't go throughout the day. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in lack because I haven't responded to all of those, and I don't have inbox 0. I'm like, okay, what's important? I want to make sure that even though I have tasks, even though I have lots of things to do, am I focused and disciplined throughout the day to enjoy little moments? Sometimes that's like, hey, go pet the cat. Sometimes that's take your walk. Sometimes that's your gym time. That is your lifetime. Sometimes it's your reading with your book and your green tea. Sometimes it's, calling your mama. Sometimes, whatever it is, if you don't build those in, the email, the text, the social media, the distractions from everybody else throwing their mission and their thing at you, eats you alive. And all of a sudden you're not in the ocean, or all of a sudden you're not calling your mama, or all of a sudden you're not in the gym. And it's easy to let other things encroach. And so what I wanted to share today was like, hey, make sure that as you're hustling, you're all grit and you're working so hard, please make sure your focus and discipline is also to make sure you build life into each day. Building it all for, unless you're able to have more freedom each day and have more fulfillment each day. What's all the hustle and the grit and all that stuff for? If at some point you're not going to be a point where you enjoy the day more, but what if you could teach yourself now to enjoy the day as if you had what you needed? I think that is what I learned a lot from Taoism is, can I enjoy the day as if I already had everything? Can I enjoy the day as if I already was worth it, as if I already was in that state of bliss? Like if the bank account was full, the kids were all, dressed and clothed and happy, like everybody was happy with you, and you had all sorts of Shangri-La moments in your life. Could you not just create that right now? Could you not create that 3 or 4 times throughout the day? Maybe you just visualize, you connecting with source, and you notice that you're full. Like, God's got you. You're good. Like, God made you unique and beautiful and strong and still here and gave you breath this morning. Can you sit with that without thinking my email, or without thinking that promotion? That's what I found, that the high performers I admire, they've figured out how to build that in. And it's inspired me. There was plenty of times in my life I didn't do enough of that. And I was like, oh, there must be a better way. Because going weeks without feeling life, or months without taking a breath, that's not life. Like, why? So I love that Jamie's been talking very openly. She's been doing great this time around, even though she's worked harder than any of us will ever know. I think it's important to see us trying. Okay, yeah. See it trying. We all have lots to go, and we have lots to do, and we built billion-dollar businesses. The question is, can we still find those moments of sanity and joy in life within the moment?
So many things you just said are so powerful, but I think, well, first of all, just going way back, people are like, oh, I lack focus, but what are you focusing on, right? And I think like a lot of people don't even know that answer. They don't even know that answer. I think that's so profound, just that. And then also something you just said that's so powerful is like the idea of scheduling in, feeling the day and feeling alive and enjoying the day. I think that is big. No one thinks to schedule those things in. They only think to schedule in all the things that take them away from from feeling the day, right? And then their whole thing is packed. And one more thing, the idea of, can you live as if everything is, okay? I think that's huge, because if we don't figure out how to do that now, there's those famous words that you accomplish a big thing, you finally get that, but it never changes anything because you take you with you,
Yeah.
right? Right? You take you with you no matter what ends up happening, no matter how full your bank account gets, no matter what book you write or what job you get or what victory your kids have or whatever it is, you still take you with you, right? Those famous words. And so getting you right, so important, right? From where we're at right now. I think that's so huge. I think that's really huge.
So huge. And I'll give it a last metaphor and example for people. I've been coaching a lot of CEOs over the last decade of my life. And I worked with one CEO I remember went in, who I learned this, I kind of learned that in corporate America, you know what people fear in corporate America? An empty calendar. They're terrified. If they have a spot on their calendar, they feel guilty, like, oh, I need to fill that with a meeting. And so, yes, I'll take every meeting you throw by me. They feel like they just have to be, they feel like productivity is every block of time scheduled in some meeting with some people. And I was coaching this one executive one time, and we looked at his calendar. It was the first thing I do with the client. I want to see their calendar. I want to see their last 6 months of a calendar. It tells me so much. And it was just, meeting. And I just looked at it. And this is the first day meeting this executive. And I looked at the calendar, I go, you're secretly miserable inside, aren't you? And I don't think anyone had ever said that. And he was like, what? And I said, there's not a moment in here from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. that's not scheduled. And I'm the schedule yourself. I'm the high performance planner guy.
Yeah, you are.
I love scheduling, but it's blocks of time that show clear progress towards the needle moving activities that matter. Most people can wipe out half the meetings in their week with absolutely no impact whatsoever on their performance or their productivity in the work. Half the meetings, half. And so this guy, we had to cut out 90%. And that made the business better. It made him happier. It made his teams happier because you didn't have a grumpy bear there all day. Suddenly it was like, oh, now there's a creative force back in. And so I feel like some of you've scheduled yourself and the kids and the projects and the dreams 24/7, but there's no take a walk at the park. There's no read a book. There's no meditate. There's no gym. There's no like life outside of those things. And there will never be life outside of those things until you build them in. Like everyone says, what should I focus on? I'm like, have you ever focused on creating lots of blocks of free time? I mean, where's the block of free time that you've been focused on building? I just feel like if we're going to focus on anything, let's focus on building a great life, or to the extent that we can. Because yes, we got to make the money and we got to launch the projects and we got to do the work. But could we focus on building a greater lifestyle? No matter what your income is, no matter how young the kids are, no matter how much the business is growing or how many team, could you still just give a few minutes or even hour a week thinking of how to build more goodness into your life? I think that's worth the focus. And I've learned people don't focus on that. They're focused on everything else, but building life into life.
I just love the story about QVC, your first time going on QVC. And because this is the ultimate story of following your heart and following your gut and doing and staying true to yourself. I feel like that's thrown around all the time. Stay true to yourself. Every time I ask someone, what's your best advice? Stay true to yourself. But this exemplifies, this is textbook, stay true to yourself. I would love for you to share that story.
Yeah, I think that we all kind of know or believe these things like, oh, I need to be true to myself, right? But then when it comes to real life and how we show up and how we decide what to do when everything's on the line, that's when it gets really tough to not just like know our values or know what we believe in, but then to actually live them. And I talk a lot in the book about how while authenticity alone doesn't automatically guarantee success, inauthenticity guarantees failure. And I saw that now play out over a decade in the tens of thousands of entrepreneurs I've had the blessing of meeting, and very few ever make it. I think it's how Oprah has made it. Nobody was ever like her or is ever like her. And to reveal all the parts that normally people would hide that's how we create connection. That's our superpower. And, you know, I after 3 years of hearing no from everyone, I mean, Angie, and every ounce of my being, I kept feeling in my gut like, okay, I created this great product with It Cosmetics. It works for me, and I have hereditary rosacea. Nothing else would work. And I just kept feeling in my gut like I need to not just launch this product, but also show on real women, every age, size, skin challenge, skin tone, like show real people using this and show how it works. And I kept having this vision. When I launched the company, it was even before YouTube was doing this. So no one was doing this. All we saw was these ads on television and commercials where it was usually somebody with the same skin tone. They always were like the same age and flawless skin. And you never saw anybody with, you know, that looked like you and like me. You know what I mean? You just never did. And so I had this vision, oh my gosh, if I can create a product that works and like try to shift culture however I possibly can in the beauty industry of how they define beauty. Like that was my deep mission, right? For every, because growing up when I'd see those ads, I always loved them. I always aspired to look like that, but deep down inside, right? They always made me feel not enough in this weird way. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I can create a company whose mission is so much bigger than me, and I could try to shift culture in the beauty industry and how they define beauty, and change those images for every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every adult who still does. And so this big vision. And then all of a sudden, for 3 years, everyone's telling me it's not going to work. Everyone's saying no. And when a retailer says no to you, what they're saying is, I don't think that we can make money from you, is what they're saying. We don't believe in what you're doing, or that it will sell, or that it will work. And so 3 years of that goes on, including, you know, years of hearing no from QVC. And it's a crazy, wild story I share in the book of how we eventually got a yes to get one shot on QVC. Now, QVC is a live television channel broadcast to 100 million homes. And when you go live, you have this big sales goal each minute that you're live. And if you're not hitting your sales goal, they pull you off, right? And anyhow, after years of rejection, I got one shot, one yes, big yes, to get one chance live on QVC to sell our concealer. And we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, barely in business. And I learned, Angie, that I would need to hit their sales goal in the 10-minute window, I would need to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer. And I also learned the deal was going to be consignment, meaning I had to figure out how to make all the product, pay for it, ship it in, and then get my one big shot on air for 10 minutes. And if it didn't sell, it would all come back to me, which means we'd be out of business. So it was a big risk, and we applied for an SBA loan because we had no money. We had literally no money left. We were down to well under $1,000. So we got 22 banks said no, and the 23rd bank said yes, just to fund the inventory for that one order, for QVC, for that one chance in 10 minutes. So basically everything was on the line. I flew out to QVC a week before the airing, and I sat in their parking lot in this rental car all alone. And I just like stared at the front of the building, knowing the next time I walked in there, my whole life was going to change, or I would be bankrupt. And here's where the struggle came is, you know, we hired third-party consultants who are amazing. They help a lot of people succeed on selling in television or selling their products in stores. And they all told me the same thing. They said, if you want a chance at succeeding, here's what you need to do. You need to go on the air in your 10 minutes, use this type of model. And all the models look like they're 12, and they were all the same skin tone with flawless skin. And I'm like, listen, like, what if I just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea and show the world how this product works? And what if I put real women of every age and shape and size and skin tone and skin challenge? And I would argue and I say, because if I'm sitting at home watching, how do I know something's going to work for me if I don't see it on someone who looks like me? Like, to me, it was so common sense, and they were mortified. And here's the thing, they wanted me to win, and they were giving me the best advice they knew how on what they said is the only way people will buy a product from something from they would say these unattainable images of aspiration that no one could possibly look like, but that is what sells product. And I'm like, So it's tough. So I sat in that rental car knowing that everything was on the line, knowing I had one shot. And it's, my gut was telling me one thing, right? And experts were telling me another. And these are the moments that define our lives, is when we learn to hear ourselves, hear our gut, and then make the decision to trust it. And it's not always easy, right? And I sat in that rental car every day for a week, and I just, I prayed, I cried, but I also imagined who that woman was watching on the other end. And I don't know why, but I kept imagining a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was like too busy to remember that she mattered and that she was beautiful. And I just kept imagining, like, if she was going to turn on her television for a few seconds and I was going to be blessed with a few seconds of her time, like, it came down to this moment where I realized I'd rather have her see me showing women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it, even if she buys nothing. I'd rather do that than sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so I knew what I had to do, but it didn't mean it was easy. And I remember walking into the QVC studios and for that one shot, that 10 minutes. And when we went live, so I remember standing there in the studio, and there's this giant countdown clock on the floor that started at the 10-minute mark. I was sweating so much, and I'm not nervous for television, but it was that everything was on the line, and I was shaking. I remember like hoping my Spanx caught all my sweat because I was like, I can't be sweating through a dress on national television. I was freaking out. But I remember the clock started, and I remember the moment my bare face before shot came up on national television, and I walked over to all the models that I chose as real women, all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all skin tones, all skin challenges. And I remember there was about a minute left in the presentation, and the host says, the tan shade's almost gone, the deep shade's almost sold out. And I was like, and then I remember at the 10-minute mark, the huge sold out sign came up across the screen. I start crying on national television. I remember they cut and then they went to like the next item, which is like Dyson vacuum or Vitamix or Apple iPhone or something. And my husband comes rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like crying. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And this is like such a guy. But that one airing, Andy turns into 5 that year, 101 the next year. Anyways, for 8 years straight, I did 250 live shows a year on QVC, and we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. It is right now at this very moment. Mm-hmm. But I only share that because it was 3 years of them saying no. Yeah. And so, like, no one, whoever's listening and needs to hear this today, no one can tell you how big your dream can be. No one can tell you you're not enough. And when people reject you and they literally look you in the eye and tell you they don't think you're going to make it, or you're not the right fit, or you're not this enough or that enough, like, those are the moments we don't quit. We don't give up. Maybe we cry a little bit, but those are the moments where we listen to our gut and we stay authentic and we keep going. And people who do that are the ones who are able to build something that lasts or that matters or that really, makes a contribution to the world. And I believe every one of us has that inside of us, right? And our life comes down to if we listen to our calling or if we listen to our opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Baby Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.